Looking for love guidance or tips on how to date someone? Maybe you're single and playing the dating game, or in a long-term relationship. There's something to be learned about how to recognize love. Tune in to True Love Knots by Maria Romano as she deep dives into everything about love, dating advice, wedding tips, entrepreneurship, and so much more. No matter your relationship status, Maria Romano has something to teach you about love, romance, staying together, breaking up, and everything in between.
Hey, my friends, Maria Romano here, True Love Knots. I want to first check in with all of you right before I start on this topic that I have for you today. How are you all doing out there? Here we are. I'm recording this. It's almost the end of June. Summer is starting. Oh, and wow, time has flown, right? Half a year gone. Think back to where you were this time last year. And I hope you come forward. That's what I hope for you. And today I want to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I want to talk about people that don't have the same abilities that we do, and why it's important to acknowledge them, and especially when it correlates to wedding ceremonies. At least I'm going to stay in my lane, in my field. And what I mean by that is, listen, you, me, most of us have been blessed with 2 feet, 2 arms, 2 eyes. We have 1 heart, 2 ears. We have a mouth to speak. However, some of you may have been born without a limb, without the ability to hear, without the ability to speak. Or you might have had an accident. Something might have happened medically, or some trauma in your life that's impeded some of your physical abilities. So now you're classified as physically disabled. And that happens, and it's an unfortunate thing that happens, but fortunately, you can go through life. There are many people that have succeeded without certain limbs, some of them, all of their limbs, and they've still succeeded. But today, the topic I want to share with you is when you are performing a wedding ceremony, and as an officiant, how you can make someone comfortable, especially if they don't have all of their physical abilities that are functioning 100%. And let me share with you a story. So last week, I performed a wedding ceremony, a vow renewal, I should say, for a couple that got married 20 years ago at that time. And unfortunately, during their marriage, the gentleman, the groom, he had a stroke. And he was still young. I'd say they were maybe in their 40s. And he had one side of him, the right side was definitely impaired, and he was in a wheelchair. And when he came strolling in with his friends, they were wheeling him in. We were waiting for his bride, his wife. It was a first look. So I started to chat with him. And I didn't want to ask how or what happened, but I asked him this question. I said, "Are you able to stand at all?" And he said, "No." He said, "I can stand maybe for a minute." So, but I want this to be a special moment because when my wife and I got married, it was just at the courthouse, and they come from St. Louis. So I said, okay. I said, well, let me give you some options, and it's up to you, and I will check with her as well. I said, your guests are going to be sitting down. He said, yes. I said, you're sitting down. Now, your bride, your wife is going to walk in. That's going to be her moment. That's going to be a great picture moment, a great video moment. However, what if I have her sit down and I sit down, and we perform the ceremony all sitting down? He said, so that you're at eye level with me? I said, yes. He says, you're at my level? I said, yes. He said, I'd like to do that. So, of course, I cleared it with his bride, his wife, and that was fine. And the ceremony went off without a hitch. But most ministers, and I'm not saying all of you, might just perform a ceremony and not even ask that question. And sometimes you'll have maybe the groom or the bride sitting because they have been physically impaired, the minister's standing, and the other party is standing. And that is really uncomfortable when you think about that, because you're not at their level, and you're reminding them, that person, that they are impaired and that they don't have all of their physical abilities about them. Now, I'm not saying you're treating them differently, but what you're doing is you're providing a service, you're providing a customer experience. So ask. It's when you don't ask that sometimes you're not doing the right thing. So don't be concerned. Don't hesitate to ask when you have a couple that one of them has, or both of them might have physical disabilities. I'll tell you, a few years ago, I performed a wedding ceremony on a couple, and I was wondering because the coordinator was walking them into the chapel and she was holding their arms, and I was a little surprised. But I was the minister on for that particular ceremony, and then I realized when I was introduced to them, they were both blind. They could not see. And their love story was so beautiful because they met. He taught people how to use Braille that would help them, taught them how to, I guess you call it reading Braille with your fingers, translating it. And she became one of his students. Unfortunately, she had some debilitating eye disease. They fell in love. And I had to guide them throughout the ceremony. They even lit a candle together. They performed their vows. They pulled out their phones, and you can hear the click, click, click. And they were actually reciting their vows based upon the Braille that was on the phone. I was so fascinated. And then, of course, I had to guide them down the aisle. But you know what? They were happy. They were in love. And we didn't we didn't fuss. We just went through the motions, and they were so grateful for that. So always ask if somebody is impaired in one way or another. That way, then everybody gets to enjoy the experience. And something else that I do too, I'm going to share with you this great tip. And again, you don't have to just use this in wedding ceremonies. These are things that you can do in your everyday life, in your business, whatever you do, in your personal life. Is when I get ready to perform a wedding ceremony, I have an announcement, especially before when the bride walks in or one of the partners walk in and everyone's going to stand. And this is what I say. I say, for those that can, please stand. I'm going to say that again. For those that can, please stand. I'm giving the people that are there as guests the grace that if they can't stand, or if they're struggling, or they're using a walker or a cane, it gives them grace that they get a pass. So think about, as you go through life, be a little bit more observant. When you speak to somebody that's maybe in a wheelchair, I don't look down on them. I actually bend. Now, I try with my knees. I'm getting a little older, so it's hard. I try to squat. It's just not the best thing to do. But I actually try to get to their level. And I think that's important. So I hope that this video has helped you, that this podcast gives you a little bit more insight. Please remember to share this with other people, because you know what? We want to be great at what we do. We just don't want to do this and go through the mechanics. You're doing this, you're spreading your love because you have a passion and a purpose, and you are definitely impacting other people's lives, not just the couples, but their guests as well. So in the meantime, my dear friends, continue to stay healthy, happy, and safe. And as I always say, spread love.